Good day, mindsetters. Today we'll be looking at a revision, that is revision for macroeconomics. What I want to outline before we go any further is that your teachers all over South Africa have fought very hard for you to have 2 papers instead of 1. So the macroeconomics is on paper 1, where we'll be looking at some of the questions which were displayed on the March 2014 paper. Without any waste of time, you see, when we look at macroeconomics, these are the main important things that you must look at. First, we must make sure, this is our checklist basically, we must make sure that you are able to present circular flow as a macroeconomic model. So the first thing is to know how circular flow operates. Secondly, we must be able to analyze. We should be in a position to analyze and explain the business cycle. This business cycle we need to go through, so we got those 2 important. The third one is to be able to know the role that is played by the public sector in the economy, especially with reference to socio-economic responsibilities in South African context. We also then have to examine the foreign exchange market and establish the exchange, how the exchange rates are established, and show the balance of payment account. Very important. This is very important in this particular section of macroeconomics. Lastly, whilst we talk about foreign exchange market, we should be able to discuss protectionism and also free trade. What is the 2 overplay each other? Why must we have protection or must we have a free trade? If we look then on the next page, we have the exam question, the actual exam questions which were adapted from the March 2014 NSC question paper. The first question that we have there, it says, choose the correct word from those given in brackets. I'm not going to waste more time here. These, we call them the lower order questions because they don't need a lot of thinking from your part. Remember that you must remember these things, no guesswork, but the first one says, calculate GDP at basic prices. We use expenditure method or production method. Which one do we use when we deal with calculation of GDP at basic prices? The correct answer, I'm listening. I'm hoping that I know that people are saying production method. Yes, that is production method is correct. Maybe whilst we are there, we need also to maybe show the answer there whilst we are going through it, but the answer will be in the next page. Okay, let's continue. The next question says, the higher turning point of the business cycle is known as what? Is it called the peak or the trough? I can hear all of you say the resounding peak is the upper turning point. Yes, that's the peak. It is the peak. The third question says, the medium-term expenditure framework shows income and expenditure estimates. Is it for a 1-year period? Is it 1 or 3-year period? Correct answer, yes. Let's listen. I think people are guessing, or some of them have got it. Most of you have got it. I know you are intelligent. It's 3 years. Yes, correct. Market failure results in higher or lower market prices. Is it higher market prices or lower market prices? If the market fails, then it causes us to have a problem of having higher prices in the market. So we must avoid by all means to have a situation of markets failing. But as we continue with our learning, we will realize that we have situations like that, that we have market failure and what causes these market failures and so on. The second question, also from the March 2014 NSC, that was question 2.4, says list 3 indicators underpinning forecasting in the business cycle. 3 indicators underpinning forecasting in the business cycle. I can hear it, yes. Yes, I can hear it. Let us see what is the correct answer. These are what? leading indicators, lagging indicators, coincident indicators. I don't want to say much about the length, aptitude, trend, extrapolation, and moving averages, as in some textbooks they put it like that. But the three indicators that are well known is what? Leading indicators, lagging indicators, and the leading indicators being the indicators that happen before the business cycle kicks off. In other words, when you see problems in mining, for example, what we had before, but that doesn't affect, because remember, it excluding gold mining. Anything that happens with non-productivity in the mines, then we know that there's something going to happen in terms of the shape of the business cycle. Lagging indicators, those which come after the main cycle. So those all the things that happen after what happened in the business cycle. Coincidental, those which are happening exactly during the time where the business cycle is operated. When in the upswing, all those factors that are found in that particular show us that where are we? Are we in the upswing or downswing? But also there is a mixture of all of them sometime happening at the same time. Mindsetters, thank you very much let's just go for a short break so that you can refresh, get a glass of water, and so that you can come back again. Mindsetters, we are back again from the ad break. We will continue with the next question. Our next question, question 3, says study the extract and the graph below and answer the questions that follow. I'm not going to waste time about reading this for you, but we can, by one way or the other, if you want to have this, with the educators can organize you that question paper so that you can go through this extract. But it's about exchange rate problems in South Africa and the problem of widespread strikes in the mining sector and so on. I'm not going to waste time. We've got very limited time going on. We also have there a graph which shows us the movement of the how our exchange rate has been dramatically moving up and down from July 2010. From July 2010, we can see it was going down, ranging from somewhere in the region of 7.90 to a US dollar, and it went by 2010, it was right at the mark of 6.50. The lowest ever was noticeable here in April 2011. But since then, from December the following year, 2011, it started performing badly. In other words, the rand lost value as we move on through the years until September 25th, where we're in the 8 rand 66 mark. I know that you are asking yourself now, where are we in terms of the rand-dollar exchange? That is your homework. Please go through and check. But what the question wants, these are the following questions which we want to find out. What is happening? They say, first question says, define the term exchange rate. What is an exchange rate? Anybody? Yes? Yes, I can hear it say, it is what? Yeah. The value of one currency expressed in terms of another currency. Yes, that's correct. Let's see if we are correct there. The price of the value of one currency in terms of another currency, e.g. $1 is equals to 9 rand, blah, blah, blah. You see, this question just says, it's just answering. You don't have to think, but you'd never know if you don't know how these currencies are determined. So it's important. Explain the negative impact of strikes on the South African economy. There we go. It's happened in front of you. We have heard what has been happening in terms of exports, production of gold. We have seen what has been happening, and you can tell any story that you like, as long as the story is very relevant. But let us hear what the examiner wants us to be able to think around. It's one, labor hours will be lost automatically. People will not be working at that time. There will be loss of production. There will also be loss of income. Obviously, people don't have income, therefore there won't be demand for goods. What happens to the economy? There's no need for production, and therefore the other sectors which are supposed to be providing secondary mining goods or transforming these mined goods into finished products, so will be sitting also now, not producing anything. So that causes a lot of problems. Loss of income, decrease in exports. How does this export decrease? Automatically, because there is no, if there's little production taking place in the mining sector, our exports become very expensive. As a result, if we have to buy gold from this instead of Russia, where it's, people compare, you remember the demand, the law of demand applies everywhere. If the price is cheap, people go and buy there and live where the price is expensive. So our exports will decrease, and we'll begin to have what? Then we begin to have a situation here of a uneven, and the balance of payment will be affected dramatically. Then what is the last problem? Job losses automatically. I'm not suggesting anything because of the current strike, but you are not politicians, we are economists. We're just reasoning things out economically to say, what would happen if there's a strike? We're looking at all the things that are taking place around, and we make conclusions. We say in economics, we extrapolate. Take all the information, we interpolate and extrapolate and come up with answers. So politicians must not shoot us, or labor unionists, we're just doing economics. Correct. The last question says, do you think South Africa attracted more direct foreign investment during April 2011? You need to motivate your answer. Did you think South Africa attracted more direct investment during that time? More direct foreign investment. Sometimes we refer to this as what? FDIs, foreign direct investment. Remember that this, boys and girls, is not easy to achieve, but the country must be very nice, conducive to attract these foreign investors to come so that they can create employment and other things that follow, alleviate poverty, address the issue of crime, and so on and so on. So the correct answer for this, let us see. It says no. It didn't, because the exchange rate is not favorable. The rand is stronger, and therefore you get less value for their currency. Because of this situation that's been taking place in South Africa, we in South Africa are unable to attract foreign investors to come to the country, because the exchange rate is not low, it's not favorable. If it's not favorable, it means, boys and girls, that we actually have a higher exchange rate compared to other countries where the investors are looking around to plow money into. Let's see, what is the next question there? The last question is question 4. In question 4, then we study the cartoon below and answer the following questions that follow. Remember that we have, boys and girls, I've been saying that we have lower order, middle order, higher order questions in each of the questions. And also the question paper is also structured in that way, because we've got section A, lower order, B, middle order, then you have essays as higher order questions. So it gives us a chance to think and be able to score points wherever we can. Here is our cartoon. That's one thing I like. There's 2 cartoons in this question paper. I just picked this one to say, just to give you a briefing of what we are looking at when we are doing this thing. It's called data response question. They are giving you a photo. They say, tell us what is this. They draw a beautiful car and present, say, what can I do? Just right. This is a nice car, a beautiful house next to it. You just interpret what you see. That's how nice economics is. There we have a cartoon says budget is hard. Then yes, the minister there says, relax folks. And there's lots of people behind him there. I've got you covered. And then there's a mini budget rocket coming in with inequality, jobs, austerity, poverty, ethos, mangaung, rent, strikes, etc. Let's hear the questions that goes with this. It says that what is the purpose of the annual budget? Very simple and straightforward. The purpose of the budget, it gives effect to the government fiscal policy. It guides government to achieve its macroeconomic objectives or goals. Someone would simply write, it is just tabling out the plan for the expenditure and income, and how the government is be able to generate its revenue and how it's going to spend that revenue. You see, we economists, we don't have a problem. We don't have these cut and dry. But if we see the answer is correct, we always give you marks for that. But we don't say people must generalize. Always stay by the book. But where we need discretion, it's very important for you to do so. First, question 4.2 says, government has spent considerable amounts of money on the implementation of e-toll in South Africa. What can government do to recover this money? Yes, it's a very hot topic, eh? But remember, you are sitting alone there, you are writing. Then nobody's going to see what you wrote about, but it makes sense economically, then we give marks for that. Let us see what we say here. According to the examiners, it says e-tolls, then we have to introduce e-tolls. In order to generate, remember that this question says the government has on the implementation of e-tolls in South Africa. What can government do to recover this? The government, one way or the other, they must recover the money. Whether we like it or we don't like it, economics says you borrow, you must pay back. How you do it is another thing. Maybe politicians can give us better answers. But we as economists, we use the resources that we have in our disposal and the manner in which how to address that situation. One, the introduction of e-tolls. I'm sure in any topic in all over the world we have that situation whereby if you use something, you must pay for it. But that is the situation. How we pay and how much and how our structuring of, I'm not sure. That's why I say politicians will play a very best role in that. Increase in license fees, portion of road accidents funds, increase in road funds, increase in fuel levies. This is not limited to boys and girls that. Like I say, if you come up with ways that would help us to be able to understand how the government can pay back, recover the monies that it spent when it did this e-toll. Some of the money was borrowed elsewhere. What can employers do to reduce the negative impact of strikes on production? One, what can employers do to reduce the negative impact of strikes on production? Offer wage increase. Simple. That one is triple and straightforward. I'm sure if in whatever mine, which was involved recently, if that offer was given 4 months ago, they've long gone there back, because this is what they want to do in order to reduce the negative impact of strikes on production. Wage increase, better working conditions, better services, promotions, and others which may be relevant. Question 4.4 says, do you think that the Minister of Finance can stop the rocket that is heading his way? Yes, the rocket. Remember our picture there. There is the rocket. It's heading is in direction. If you look at the size of size, how huge that rocket is. Ooh, that is very big, that rocket. It's coming to the Minister of Finance. And the minister only has this small shield there. Will he be able to protect all these people with this little shield? Keep saying, okay, fine, relax, folks. Everything is all right. Everything is well handled. How do we help the situation? Let's see what we have there. I know you've been thinking about the correct answer to that one. So, 1, no expenditure of the government rocket is far greater than the revenue. You see, the expenditure as a rocket, there's the expenditure, is far greater than the revenue. The revenue is the shield. The money that the government pulls with whatever source that it uses in order to pull money to the state revenue, to SARS, is unable to to handle all this huge expenditure that has been tabled out. Right. The second one is that the minister says that his people are covered, but the rocket is far bigger than the protection. Yes, the minister can use MTEF to address the economic challenges. Remember, MTEF is a budget for 3 years. So that in this year we are unable to cover that. We say, okay, what do we didn't cover this year? Next year, the year 2013, 2014 is what is going to happen. And then 2014, 2015. And then in the 3 years, we are able to cover all, maybe, if not all, but most of those things which that rocket was displaying there. Sorry. Okay, we go to the next question. The next question says, explain the Laffer curve with the aid of a graph. You see, this issue about the Laffer curve, people make very difficult, and it's quite very simple actually. This is just a graph which shows us the relationship between tax and, in fact, tax rate and the revenue that must be received by the state. You have two things, two variables. Tax rate, I repeat, I say rate, not taxation. Tax rate and also the revenue that goes to the system. According to this famous American economist here, Laffer, I forgot the initials, it's a very nice name, but he's saying that the longer the people work, the higher the interest, the tax rate. At some stage, they are bound to say, no, we cannot work any further. But we cannot explain this in a vacuum. I just want people to see it live. This is the situation. We have our Laffer curve. On the vertical axis, we see the tax revenue displayed there. And on the horizontal axis, we have 100% as tax rate. That is the last part. Remember, I'm just using a vertical and horizontal. Remember, we are not mathematics. We don't use X and Y's. All right. So that is the situation. If you realize that at point T, the Laffer curve is shown by a vertical, in fact, the upward rising curve. The upward rising curve until that point, and then it comes back there. But remember, we said that this Laffer curve is not bound to be symmetrical. It can be like that and then go down that way. It doesn't have to be symmetrical. At that point, T shows that that's the upper point of the... Now, what happens is at revenue 2, at tax rate 2, the revenue generated will be R1. And if the tax rate keeps on increasing, this shows the increasing tax rate, is the tax. If it keeps on increasing, if it goes, for example, to T, I'll say T0, what is going to happen? We'll have R0. But if it reaches T, that is the apex, where after, when we increase this tax from T, say, to TP, not Teddy Pendergrass, to TP, we realize that this shows that there's less that is going to the government coffers in the form of revenue, RP. So until a situation where when we reach 100% tax, obviously 0 will be collected by the state. It means that the people will be patient. We are patient. We will pay this tax and pay this tax until a certain point the worker says, no, if we increase the tax above that point, I'd rather stay at home 2 days and go to work 3 days. The other week, Monday, I'm not going because the more I work, the more tax I pay. So we need to be careful as tax people as revenue, department ministers, and everybody who are doing this. Remember, they know all these concepts. They work around issues of how can we best do this thing about tax. Okay. Sorry, maybe we need to also check if there is anything that we're missing out on this question. Yes, yes, indeed, we nearly just did that. It says, the Laffer curve shows the relationship between tax rate and tax revenue collected by the government. 2, the curve shows that as tax increases, government revenue increases up to a certain point, like we have seen in the diagram, to e.g. T2. There is T2 there. When the tax rate is high, people are less likely to work hard. Yes, when the tax is very high, people most less likely to work hard. If the tax is 100%, then nobody will work because all income would be going to tax, like we've mentioned. Too high tax rates would what? Would lead to tax evasion. These are two important concepts again. Would lead to tax evasion or tax avoidance. Well, we'll deal with that some other time, what's the difference, what they mean. Reduction in tax rate will lead to the decrease in tax evasion and increase in incentives to work, save, and interest. If taxes are reduced, remember our government have been so dynamic with this issue of tax over these years. They've been trying to be very cool. In fact, the income tax has been declining over the years to encourage people to start working more, and the government sit around and look around and how best the collection, how best, and it has been clear that actually the government is actually collecting more. The revenue, the SARS is collecting more tax because less people are running away from tax and finding tricks of not paying it. So the lesser the tax, the more obedient the people become in terms of payment, saving, and investment. If tax is zero, no government revenue will be. Again, we cannot say, okay, everybody, hey, happy South Africa, new democracy, go and work and just enjoy your money, no tax. And then what about the public goods, education, health, and so on? That has to be financed, poverty reduction, and other things. So there is no way that the country may not have tax. So once we do, we must strike a balance between the two. Not too high, not too less, not too little. Economists use this to qualify a reduction in the level of income tax. The apex of the curve, right to the top, shows that the tax where the government revenue can be maximized. It just shows you there that you cannot go any more higher than that. In other words, we cannot decide to go higher than that because then we are going to have a dire situation. Right. Okay. The last one is that this point can vary from country to country. Laffer curve may not always be symmetrical, like I say. Something symmetrical means this side is the same as this side. The left is the same as the right. If you look at the picture, everything which is on the left-hand side is on the right-hand side. So it's not the same all the time. The left might differ from the right, and so on. Evidence suggests that tax rate in most countries are below T. In most countries, it is suggested that it is, then is what? Always below T, below this point here, so that people can start working. Because if it goes beyond that point, then it's a big problem. Well, thank you, learners. We just came to the end of question 5. We'll just take a little break so that we come back and discuss question 6. Thank you. Learners, welcome back from the ad break. Hope you're just enjoying this economics as much as we all enjoying it. We can see how these questions are. These questions are quite simple and straightforward. They just want people to think and be able to get maximum marks. Remember, the main thing about this economics is not to pass economics, is to have a discipline so that we are able to confront situations in your real life situation. But however, this is what we need to do. The question 6 is what? That comes from February, March 2014. Question 7. But here we have it as question 6. It says there is a constant flow of money, goods, and services in the economy. There is a constant flow of money, goods, services in the economy. Clear? What is the thing that we need to discuss here? We need to discuss the interaction between the participants in the open economy. I don't know how to remind people, such words like interact. When things interact, they work with each other, or according to each others. They interact, they work with one another, right? How the interaction between the participants in the open economy happens. Remember, that is for 30 marks. And then we are able to also discuss or construct a fully labeled diagram to illustrate an open economic circular flow. You need to do what? A fully labeled diagram which will be able to illustrate an open economy circular flow model. Remember, this is exactly, if you know macroeconomics, that's where we start, circular flow, right? We will try by all means to go through this step by step so that we are in a position to confront this head on when we get a question like that. This circular flow, what is very, very important that I'm picking up here is we need to discuss this participation. One important way that we pick up, you're talking in terms of open economy. Yes. 2, we must be able to construct a fully labeled diagram about this. So you've got marks for the diagram and you've got marks allocated for the discussion. Boys and girls, it has been said over and over again, please remember that when we do these essays in economics, you need to have a structured, we call it a structured essay. You don't just write, wrap in the whole paper and say, okay, they'll pick up the points themselves. Because you might lose a lot of marks because of that. What is very important is people must start structuring this. You've got your topic on top, followed by what? Your introduction. Then the next would be what? The body. And lastly, we have the conclusion. Very important. If you have these things here, the topic is there. Circular flow and the interaction of participants in the economy. Nice. Introduction. The introduction simply outlines what we are going to tell us about in a little more detail. Say, this essay is going to attempt or is going to address how the participation between the stakeholders of economy, these stakeholders being what? The household, businesses, firms, and businesses from the foreign sector and the government. And then in the body you start then. How do these relate? But if I were you, it would be wise for you to start, Normally we start these things. We use what? We start it with a diagram. I find it often quite simple when you have a diagram and you interpret the diagram, because all the facts are coming from what you have got there. Remember, there is no cut and dry and fixed model or that you need to use in order to address this. As long as the model that you show makes sense when we interpret your essay. Like mine here. I'll start it by simply showing these participants in the economy. Then I'll say this is what? Private households. I'll say households. Remember, I can't write, it's households. And then we have firms on the other side. Firms or businesses. And I say these are the two people that who are going to interact. But remember, these two people must now interact in the economy. Then I realize, okay, we have firms on the other side, we have households on the other side. The households, on one hand, they own factors of production. And as they own these factors of production in a free market system, by the way, these factors of production are owned by individuals. What are these factors? I say labor, capital, entrepreneurship, and we have what? Natural resources. These, remember, look at the arrow. You can see this arrow is going from this side. All these factors are coming from the household. The household then supply to the firm these factors of production. Now, why does it supply this firm? Because the firms demand these factors of production. See, there's demand and supply again. Someone supplies, someone demands. We are going to talk about that. Remember, a factor market is a market where the business firms demand factors of production, whereas the households supply them. That is factor market. Remember, then we can say, if we had space there, we would say this is a factor market. That write it in full, to show that you know this thing. Because if you say FM, I think you're talking about radio or whatever. Maybe you're talking about frequency modulation or whatever, but write it in full. Factors of market. And then what do these firms do? After using this in order to produce goods and services, what do? They remunerate these factors of production. In other words, for labor, they are going to pay wages. For capital, they pay interest. For entrepreneur, they pay what? Profit. And for natural resources, they pay rent. All this goes where? It goes to the household. Something very interesting once more. Then we say, all these remunerations of factors of production, we classify them as income. We'll discover that again when we talk about gross national income. We are referring to all the remuneration of factors of production. So all these firms paying all these remuneration. Now here is the household has got lots of income now in a form of profit, rent, interest, and wages. The other side of the coin applies. I was trying to make this as more as secular as possible so that people have a picture of a cycle. Because we're talking of what? No. Let's leave that one. Because we're talking about what the secular flow. It's something like secular. Right? So, these have got the income in form of those things there. What do? They start expenditure. They start spending. They start spending this income by purchasing goods and services. pays goods and services from the businesses. So there's always a vicious cycle going on. Remember, we have two only here. We have not spoken about others because we said, boys and girls, we are talking in terms of an open economy. I didn't want to ask you that question earlier, but I took it, at your level, you must be very well educated for that question. Open economy is an economy where it allows what? Export and import, international trade taking place also there as a participant in the circular flow. But very important, therefore, we also have what? The government. The government interacts with these firms and household. What does it do? The household will what? Will pay what? I can hear it, yes, tax. It will pay tax to the government as form of revenue. Always show your arrows so that, and we know traditionally people guess. They'll write a nice picture, but when you check, this person just took a photo with his eyes and remembered this and put it there. He forgot in the photo to even photograph the arrows. So those arrows tells us that you don't know what you are talking about. So it simply says that this household, the tax is going to, here's the tax here. This tax is going to the government. Whilst in exchange, the government will what? Will offer public goods and services. I'll just write it in lack of space. P, public goods and services. Where do these go? They go to what? To the households. I know you are saying deep down in your heart, no, I think I get the picture. Yes, yeah. These public goods and services, they are talking about schools, education, health, hospitals, and clinics. You've got plenty of these things that the government is issuing in exchange of what? Taxation. At the same time, we are also saying that the firms also pay tax. The firms pay tax to the government. If you like, you see households, somebody say, oh, hey, you are lying. What kind of tax do they pay? You say personal tax with the household. Or what? Pay as you earn, pay AYE. Or what? Oh, GS, or VAT. And this other one says firms pay tax in which way? They pay what? Profit tax. They pay what? They pay, well, it's sometimes called corporate tax or so on. And many other ways in which this generate. But this tax, remember that we said this taxation will be going to, it will be going to now the government. In exchange of what? Of public goods and services. Yes, I hear some people are saying, even firms get public goods and services. Infrastructure development. We got what? Railway, what? Transportation, roads. We got, all these things. Electricity, telephones, telecommunication, and so on. Satellite. All these things, the business reap from is in a form of public goods and services from the government. So you got one thing left now. I remember, and I can hear you say, oh, I wonder what is he going to say now? Because he's quiet. He's been talking about open economy, but this economy of his is still closed. There's no foreign sector. How does the foreign sector come in this equation? It is very simple. I'll just put the foreign sector right at the bottom there. Let's also choose color for the foreign sector. How does the foreign sector work? It's simple. We have people as individuals, as household, who are purchasing, right? We are purchasing. We are buying, right, goods from other countries. What do we call things when we buy goods from other countries? We import goods. Importation, we import goods. Something is wrong. I know somebody is saying this somewhere. That no, that arrow is not correct. Because what we know is that the arrow, when you import, goods go from the foreign country to who? To you inside the country. At the same time, where does the money go? The money goes out of the country to the foreign sector. In exchange of what? Expenditure. What do we call this word? We call it what? Import expenditure. Yeah. Import expenditure. That's what we call it. I'll write it also, import expenditure. Same applies to the firms. The firms are doing the same thing. The firms will then start also. They will start buying goods from foreign countries. And when you buy from foreign countries, we have a special name for that. We say you are importing goods. But you see, with firms it's even obvious because we purchase investment goods, capital goods, big machineries that we use in order to produce certain things. We import most of them. So import, and in that case, where does the money go again now? The money goes what? Then we call it also import expenditure. Remember, I said there's no cut and dry way in which you can draw this, but as long as it makes sense. But try, you see what I'm doing here. I have restrictions in the screen to use rulers and make it neat. It doesn't, people must see what is written there. But I know because I'm taking you step by step, we are able to see what's happening. If we look at now, this is exports and imports. Importing of goods, we call it import expenditure, pay, import expenditure. But what about exports? Exports, yes, the households also export goods. Some households, but mostly we see this situation operating with what? With firms. The firms are exporting goods. Well, then we call it what? Export. We got export revenue. It's export revenue. Money that is coming to the country from other countries. For avoiding confusion, I'm going to leave it at that. I want to talk about this form of export happening there. Because we know look, there's households, but as soon as the household starts a business, it's something else. We call it what? Overjust. It's a business. It falls in another sector, the firm. So let's leave that one because it doesn't have to be symmetrical. Right. Okay, so this machinery that the government is sending out, and we have actually bought other machinery, but there are other things that we send, export to many countries. I know in the form of mining goods, export of gold, when we count our balance of payment, for instance, we have it as an item in the current account where we say net gold exports, because we have to overplay the two, whether which one is bigger, the export or import of gold, where we are able to see, are we having a favorable or unfavorable balance where our exports are greater than imports in terms of favorable, or import greater than export in terms of unfavorable. Boys and girls, there is our graph. I'm sure somebody is saying, shoo, 10 marks only. So much work to do. It's not so much. I made it to look so much because I was just taking you step by step. My setters, thank you very much for being with us. We hope that you're enjoying economics. We hope that we'll pass this with distinctions. Please keep all those questions coming so that we are able to help you when necessary. Thank you very much. Good day.